The key to Miami's season might be in getting the most out of their role players. So we continue our player preview series by looking at two familiar faces, Duncan Robinson and Josh Richardson, and how they can help the Heat win a championship this year. Can Richardson be better than his previous stint in Miami? And will Duncan finally take the next steps offensively? We answer all that and more in today's episode of Locked On Heat.
You are Locked On Heat, your daily Miami Heat podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to Locked On Heat, your daily podcast on the Miami Heat. I'm Wes Goldberg. Joining me, as always, is David Ramil. However you're tuning in on YouTube, Odyssey, or your favorite podcast app, thanks so much for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. We're back to our training camp player previews. We'll be focusing on Duncan Robinson and Josh Richardson today, two players who will be tasked with replacing Max Strus and Gabe Vincent, at least somewhat. We'll be discussing their best and worst case scenarios, if they are in or out of the rotation, and what Cheesecake Factory menu item represents them the most. Also later, we've got news on Damian Lillard. But let's start with the biggest question facing Duncan Robinson this season. David, what do you got?
Well, look, I think with Duncan, we know where his strength lies. I think that's pretty obvious. And yet last year we talked about, we saw him make the progression as a more versatile-ish type scorer. He incorporated that floater early on in the season, and then he kind of incorporated that as well in the playoffs, where he was able to go off ball a little bit more, put the ball down the floor if he was run off the three-point line and be able to get to the basket. We also saw him be able to add a little impact offensively when he was making some sharp passes, especially in that two-man game with Bam Adebayo. So my big question for him going into training camp is, can he add something else to his game that makes him a more impactful player?
See, I don't want him to add anything else to his game. I really don't. I like the three-point shooting. It's good. I don't. And the threes are worth more than the twos.
I keep thinking back to that Ramona Shelburne profile on Duncan years ago, and Spo saying, basically chewing Duncan out for doing anything other than shooting. But we've also seen teams kind of figure that out and take him out of the game because all he does is basically regress to being a shooter. Right. And I think in his most impactful moments last season, it was when he was showing differences, and they set up that shooting in the long run. So I agree 100%. His strength is always going to be in being able to pop 7 threes at any given moment. It's when he can switch that up, work that two-man game with Bam, throw that lob pass into Bam if he rolls to the rim, or if he puts the ball down himself. We saw it in the finals. Like there was that one string in game 2 where they won, and I think he was a big part of that because he kind of diversified his offense a little bit.
Look, I'm being a little facetious. You know what I mean? Obviously, attack the closeout when they're closing out hard to make the right basketball play. I don't want him taking floaters. I don't want him taking mid-range. I don't want any of that. Either take the three or attack the basket. And like you said, if that lob with Bam was huge. If he can get to the basket and lay it up or even dunk, that's fine. Right. Like I like all that stuff. That stuff's great. But to me, it gets back just to the three-point shooting again. My big question for him is, can he continue his playoff success? Here's the regular season versus the playoff splits. Regular season, Duncan Robinson last year, 37% shooting overall, 32.8% on threes, and 4 personal fouls committed per 36 minutes. In the playoffs, he went from shooting 37% to 47.5%. He went for, overall. He went from shooting 33% from 3 in the regular season to 44% from 3 in the postseason. He went from committing 4 fouls every 36 minutes to 3.1 fouls every 36 minutes, which is the difference between having to be taken out and getting to stay on the floor. And so that to me is the biggest thing with Duncan Robinson. We are looking at what essentially has been a 2-year slump since he signed the big contract. He broke out of that slump in a major way in the playoffs and especially in the NBA, in the Eastern Conference Finals and the NBA Finals. He was enormous for the Heat. Max Strus is gone. He needs to now step up and reclaim the job that Max Strus took from him. And the only way he can do that is if he can continue that playoff success. So that's what I'm looking at. In terms of the best case scenario, that's basically what I have. Back to 40% shooting from threes, 40+%, keeps the fouls down, and plays, and he plays like 20 plus minutes per game. That's my best case scenario for him.
So is mine. I have him as a possible starter shooting over 40% from three, at least 40% from three. Like that's the baseline for him, and I think that's where it is. And I wanted to ask you this because even in just talking about the situation, like how likely is it that we're going to see an extension of what we saw in the playoffs continue on through the regular season? I think he kind of got over the schneid a little bit, and I know he's kind of downplayed it as players do. But I think there was a psychological component that's impacted him since he signed the contract, the weight of that. He's talked about that in the past. On top of that, there's been the in and out of the rotation, never knowing exactly where you are. And that's been difficult for him to make that adjustment. Can he kind of take what he did in the playoffs and carry it through to the regular season? I think he can. Where do you stand on that?
I think we've seen Duncan Robinson's worst basketball.
That is my worst case scenario. That is my worst case scenario. The worst case scenario is there is none because we've already seen the very worst of what Duncan is.
I'm with you. Like, look, I don't know that he's going to, I don't know. I mean, he could shoot 44% from three. That's basically what he was doing before the big contract. So
yes,
I'm a believer in Duncan Robinson, and I'm with you. Whatever he wants to say, there was definitely something mental going on there. And when you're a shooter, it's like being a batter. Right. In baseball, it's like, all right, all you can do is keep swinging. It's a total shooting, unlike maybe more so than anything else in basketball, is mental. Right. And so he obviously broke through something there, and to do it in the playoffs and to help carry your team to the finals, especially with Tyler Hero out. And I'm with you. This is a guy who could, if all things go well, could start. It's not out of the realm of possibility because he used to be a starter. It wasn't that long ago that he was. My worst case scenario is that he gets off to a bad start. And then that leads to a slump, because that's basically what's happened the last couple of years.
That's exactly it.
Here are Miami's first five opponents of the regular season and where they ranked in terms of 3-point shooting percentage allowed last season. Okay. Opening night, Detroit Pistons. They ranked 16th in 3-point percentage allowed. About slightly below average. Not good. So that's a good opportunity for Duncan Robinson to get off on the right foot. Next game's Boston. They ranked 4th last year, but Duncan Robinson has confidence. Duncan Robinson has confidence against the Celtics. I like that matchup for him.
Yep.
Minnesota is next. They're 24th. They suck. Milwaukee is next. They're 8th. They're very good at denying the 3-point shots that they want to deny, but Mike Budenholzer is out. Adrian Griffin is in. Who knows what that defense is going to look like?
You know what he likes? He likes to match up against Pat Connaughton, right? I think there's a little friendly rivalry there. The two white guys that can shoot, and the fact that I think Duncan's always seemed to have a little extra juice when it comes to playing the Bucks.
And then Brooklyn is the 5th game of the season. They ranked 13th after the All-Star break, trying to capture sort of that post-KD Kyrie thing. They're very, very good defensively. That could be a little bit of a problem. But generally speaking, those first 5 games, more so, I think, provide Duncan Robinson an opportunity to get off to a good start is my point there.
Duncan Robinson versus Tyler Hero in that Brooklyn game is going to be incendiary.
In or out of the rotation?
I think he's in. I think just by virtue of losing Strus, you kind of have to find that replacement high-level scorer. Unless, of course, Dame comes in and you have to, with whoever is left on the roster, you kind of have to figure out the best complementary players, and maybe Duncan might not be it. But I think he can handle that role. And I think he could be at least a starter. And if not, a contributor off the bench, certainly.
The part going unsaid here is Duncan Robinson could potentially be part of a Damian Lillard trade if something does go down.
Yes.
I think my best guess is that Portland would prefer Kyle Lowry's expiring over Duncan Robinson. And my best guess also is that I think Miami would prefer them to take Lowry's expiring and then to keep Duncan Robinson. As great as a 3-point shooter as Damian Lillard is, he's only one 3-point shooter. You can't have too many 3-point shooters. And when Damian Lillard's off the floor, if you don't have a guy like Duncan Robinson on the roster or somebody else doesn't really emerge, the Heat could have still a lack of 3-point shooting if you're trading Tyler Hero and Duncan Robinson. Like, that could be a problem for them in terms of depth. I actually prefer to keep Duncan Robinson, even though the long-term contract is there, which we'll touch on a little bit later. I have him also as in. He has to be. If no Damian Lillard trade is done, the Heat only have 4 guards on the roster. He's obviously one of the top 3 or 4 on the roster. So I have him as in. He's going to have to play. Whether or not he starts, comes off the bench, how many minutes he plays, I don't know. But he will play a nightly role. And again, if he's still on the roster when a Damian Lillard trade gets done, I still think he has a major role to play on this team. All right. Coming up next, why Josh Richardson should be even better in his return stint with the Heat. Plus, we've got the latest on Damian Lillard that's coming up next here on Locked On Heat. Today's episode of Locked On Heat is brought to you by Bird Dogs. I love my Bird Dogs. They make me look good with their stretch khaki shorts designed to fit slimmer through the thigh and leg, giving me a truly sculpted look. To put it another way, Bird Dogs shorts do the exact same thing as Lululemon, but fit way better, and they're way better than regular shorts that are made of stiff, restricting cotton. You don't want that, especially not in this Florida heat. So Bird Dogs fixes this issue by inventing a cloud knit fabric that looks just like khaki, but it stretches so you get a way slimmer fit without having to sacrifice movement. Plus, they're cool, they're breathable, they're great. Plus, Bird Dogs uses anti-stink, sweat-wicking fabric that keeps you cool and dry all day long. I guess fall is coming up in other parts of the country, not here in South Florida. We don't have that season.
What is this autumn I've heard about so much?
But maybe your body temp runs cold a little bit. Well, great for you. Bird Dogs has pants, which are the things that are longer than shorts. They got to go all the way down to the ankle. They have those too in the cloud knit fabric that we're talking about. So get yourself a pair of shorts or the joggers or whatever you're looking at. Go to birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA or enter the promo code LockedOnNBA at checkout for a free Bird Dogs water bottle with your order. That's birddogs.com/LockedOnNBA for a free water bottle at checkout. You're not going to want to take your Bird Dogs off. We promise you. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. Make sure you're subscribed on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app. We'll be back next week to discuss Bam's ceiling and how much better he can be for the Heat this season.
I've got a quick question off of our ad read there. Wait, you mentioned in the Bird Dogs pants that they go all the way down to the ankle.
It's true.
Is capri pants something for men that I'm not aware of? Or am I missing out on something here? Your short pants? Do they sell short pants for adult men?
There are. Yeah.
There are. That's a thing?
Yeah, you can get a higher inseam, just a shorter inseam to sort of just flash a little.
How high are we talking about? Like to the knee or something? Like what is that?
Well, then you're back to shorts. If the pants go all the way to just come up to the knee, you're just right back to square one.
Or like mid calf pants. Is mid calf pants a thing that adult men wear?
I don't think so. Not unless you're like going. I mean, maybe in like a flood.
Okay, all right. I
get plenty of those.
I just didn't know that the need to specify that they go down to the ankle. I was like, don't they all go down to the ankle? I don't. Maybe I'm.
You got shorts, right? And then pants are like shorts, but they go all the way down to the ankle.
Good point.
A lot of people in Florida don't know what pants are. You don't have to wear them. So I just wanted to explain it in case people were interested. Trying something.
That's problematic. New. That's problematic. Like I know what a parka is, and I've never had to wear one in South Florida. It's like if you don't know what
parka,
pants are,
it's a place with a slide and the swings. We don't have those either.
No, yeah, okay.
We do have this.
Green space here. The clock has started.
Dame requesting a trade out of Portland.
Same time.
To have to lower your asking price and look elsewhere, and that's where Miami will still be a part of this process.
This is supposed to be a peaceful separation.
Gabe has every right to ask for a trade.
The notion that they're going to have to give him away for nothing is just stupid.
I stand with Damian Lillard on that. I ain't got no problems with it at all.
And we have a business called incremental reporting.
It will hang over the whole summer.
It does.
Bill Simmons was right, man.
He had his crystal ball working overtime. Absolutely. That was great foresight from him.
The Oregonians' Aaron Fentress reported on Thursday that, yes, the Trailblazers are canvassing the league for other offers, but, quote, they're not really being wowed by anything that's substantial, end quote. NBC Sports' Casey Johnson reported that the Bulls were interested in maybe perhaps trading one Zach LaVine for Damian Lillard, and Portland was just like, no, not interested in that either. Again, not being wowed by anything. LaVine entering a second year of a 5-year, $215 million contract. He's 28. He's a great scorer, 25 points per game over the last 4 or 5 years, whatever it was. Limited playmaker, below average defender. There's a little bit of injury history in his past, but he's pretty much gotten over that. But he's older than Tyler Hero, much more expensive than Tyler Hero. Chicago would have a hard time trading Zach LaVine for even a neutral return, let alone Damian Lillard. So obviously that's not something that Portland would be interested in. Plus, he also plays guard, which is the problem that Portland has with Tyler Hero. But obviously, if you're Portland, you would prefer to have Tyler Hero, who's younger and cheaper, if you had to take a guard back in return. So that's where we're at.
Yeah, not much of an update, really. I mean, it provides a little bit more clarity, I suppose, on just the same themes that we've been talking about. That there's
here's my
mild
takeaway.
interest around the league. Yeah,
my takeaway is that Portland's on the phone now. That's it. Like we're getting like these reports that nothing is happening is something happening. Like this is the Trailblazers being like, we don't like this, we don't like this, but at least they're on the phone. They're calling people. What I think is going to ultimately happen here, David, is the Trailblazers are going to call Chicago and Toronto and New Orleans and Serbia and whatever it is that they need, whoever they need to call, the G League Ignite, like whatever you need to do, call them. Duke, just call everybody, and it's gonna land them back to a phone call with the Miami Heat.
Oh man!
And if that's what it takes, that's what it takes, man. Like that's fine.
I would love to be a fly on the wall to see Joe Cronin have to tuck tail and make that phone call. That begrudging phone call.
You have the intern do it.
Yeah, but still, hey Pat, hey Joe, what's going on? Didn't expect to hear from you this summer.
That's when Aaron Goodwin steps in and just is the intermediary.
Go between,
He's just like, look, Cronin doesn't want to call you. He's a little embarrassed, man. Like, but we knew this was going to get done all along. So let me just negotiate on your behalf. And the Pat Riley would be like, no, I'm not doing that. Call him up. Let's go.
Let's do this like adults.
Speaking of offseason business, the Heat brought back Josh Richardson on a 2-year, $6 million deal. He has a player option for next season. What's the biggest question for Josh Richardson this season, David?
Let's see. For Josh Richardson, what is his role on the team? Because I think obviously he was younger and a second round pick, and yet he went through these different iterations of this team, during his rookie season. Obviously Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, Goran Dragic they trade for, etc. So there's all these things that happened, and he could never really find his footing. And then Chris, obviously his career cut short. Dwayne leaves the team in 2016. Josh kind of has to take over the mantle as the team's quote unquote star player. He was the best player on a team that wasn't particularly good alongside Goran Dragic. And he never really found his footing. And then of course he was traded. So since then, he's never really seemed to be able to find exactly where to fit into any roster, whether it's Boston or Dallas or Philadelphia or New Orleans. He kind of got a little bit of a boost with the Pelicans last season as a contributor off the bench. But what will his role be in Miami? And I think he needs that kind of clarity in order for him to star in that role.
I think since leaving Miami, there has been clarity on what Josh Richardson is. And that was what was lacking when that last year in Miami. They tried to make him the star of the team. And obviously he wasn't cut out to be that. And look, test him, see if he can be that guy. Then they traded him for the new star of the team in Jimmy Butler. And then since he's left, he's bounced around different teams only because he's kind of an above average player. But those teams were contending teams, always looking for more. But he's a 3-and-D plug and play guy, right? And so he's going to come back to Miami, I think, with a very clear role. Is like, hey man, we're not going to ask you to do anything more than shoot threes, play defense. That's it. Make open shots, play defense, attack the occasional closeout, make the occasional pass. But if you could guard the best guard when you're on the floor, and if you can make open threes and take them at a high volume, that's all we need you to do. My big question for him is he better than Max Strus? That's the big question. So let me give you something here. Player A, player B. We're going to do that stats game. So here's player A's stats, and you're going to guess which one is which. And the listeners can play along too. Player A scored for his career, so it's a guy. 11.8 points per game, 43% shooting overall, 36.5% from three, 3.1 rebounds, 2.7 assists, 1.1 steals. Player B, over his career, 10 points per game, 42.7% overall, 37% from three-point range, 2.7 rebounds per game, 1.5 assists per game, 0.4 steals per game. Which one is player A? Which one is player B?
I would say Josh is player A.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And the steals is kind of what gave it away. I kind of debated whether or not to give that part up.
Okay. Yeah, I get. So he's at least better than Strus, right? Like over the course of his career. But there was that year, 2016 and 17, or 17-18, where he was kind of the team's de facto star, and a lot of those numbers somewhat inflated over what would happen over the course of his career.
He's a better rebounder, he's a better playmaker, and he's obviously better defensively and more disruptive with the steals over Max Strus. And I don't think you don't need the stats. You could just watch the games. You know that. He scored more too, but
My concern though is like we know what Josh is capable of. We've seen the highs from him, but why has it always been so difficult for those other teams to kind of get the most out of him and get him a role where he can thrive? And like you mentioned, the fact that he's played for contending teams, Boston, Philadelphia, Dallas was a playoff.
He was
team,
good for Boston. They had to trade him for Derek White because they needed a point guard. Right. And like you said, he was good for the Pelicans, and he didn't really make sense for the Spurs when they started rebuilding. Like sometimes it just happens. Dallas misses him. I was on a Celtics podcast yesterday. He was like, we kind of miss Josh Richardson. We kind of wish we still had that guy. So there's a little bit of seller's remorse there. So I'm with you there. I just think sometimes you just need the right situation. And Josh Richardson is such a situational player. I love his fit on this roster, the way that he can just be. And I teased it going into the segment. I think he's going to be better in this stint, however long it lasts, than he was even in the last stint, because now he gets to play off of a Jimmy and a fully formed Bam Adebayo and whoever else is going to be on the court with him. And this is not somebody that can be involved in the Damian Lillard trade because he just signed. Best case scenario for Josh Richardson.
Best case scenario, high level contributor. That's all we need from him. Like, I don't know if he's a starter or a bench player or what, but he just, the 3-and-D, that's it. He just needs to be a guy who provides that spark, a defensive play, easy buckets in transition off of steal or turnover. Him and Jimmy as the defensive backcourt there. I mean, that's phenomenal. That might be Miami's best defensive backcourt in a long while. So I really could see that combination being really, really strong in Miami's favor.
My best case scenario is that he starts as the 2 guard next to Damian Lillard. 3-and-D player, plug and play, like you said, 3-and-D plug and play guy. He could be there, Contavious Caldwell-Pope. Like, that's all the Miami Heat need him to be. Best case scenario, it's exactly what he would be next to a superstar like Damian Lillard. Worst case scenario, I've just got streaky shooter off the bench. But I really, like, that's me. I don't think he's streaky. He's a good shooter. Like, Josh Richardson, the floor is pretty low on him.
Yeah. For me, the worst case scenario is just doesn't adjust to playing for a championship, and Miami's depth fails to manifest as a result. Because you're like a lot of people, and I'm high on Josh. You're high on Josh. There's the good vibes, right? Like, he's coming back to the team that drafted him. It was tough to kind of trade him in the first place. I know he was just kind of miscast in his role here, but I think overall most Heat fans appreciated who he was and that he always tried, even if he fell short of those expectations as lofty as they were. But, you come in here now, it's a different team, different aspirations, clearer hierarchy than he ever played with. And you wonder whether or not Josh can understand that role, whether or not it's just not clear enough for him. And as a result, then you're kind of looking around saying, well, what did we trade? What did we sign a guy like Josh for if he's not even going to be able to play at a high level? I don't think that's going to happen. Again, this is why it's the worst case scenario.
Yeah, I'm thinking, like, even realistically, like, dude's going to play. I mean, in and out of the rotation, I have him as in. Just too easy.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, all right.
For sure. Yeah.
What Cheesecake?
He gets that phone call. Sorry, I don't think he gets that phone call from Spo telling him to sign a 1-and-1 if he's not going to. At least, he's going to be able to compete for a role, and I think it's pretty clear that he can win one.
You mentioned the 1-and-1. That has something to do with our next segment. What questions are we asking about these players this time next year? Plus, what Cheesecake Factory menu item represents both Duncan Robinson and Josh Richardson the best? We're going to talk about that here on Locked On Heat next. But first, a word from our sponsor.
Today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. Look, there's a lot to say about DoorDash here, especially on this ad read. So if you don't know about DoorDash by now, it's time for you to get into it. And there's a lot of reasons why you might want to order something via DoorDash, whether it's groceries or just pick up dinner or anything like that. But it all boils down to the same thing. You don't want to, you don't have the time for it. Either way, you just feel lazy. There's lots of different reasons. Just order it via DoorDash. They've got you covered. That's all it takes. You've trusted DoorDash to deliver your restaurant favorites, and now you can get your groceries delivered, and they actually deliver them too. With thousands of grocery stores to choose from, you'll find the best in your neighborhood, and you can boost your local economy with each and every order. So right now, if you sign up, get 50% off your first DoorDash order and up to a $20 value when you use the code Locked On NBA at checkout. That's right. Limited time offer and terms to apply. But if you go right now, that's 50% off, a $20 no minimum subtotal, and zero delivery fees on your first order when you download the DoorDash app in the App Store and enter the code Locked On NBA. That's right. Don't forget, that's code Locked On NBA for 50% off your first order with DoorDash.
Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. everydayers, make sure that you're subscribed on YouTube and on your favorite podcast app. We're going to be back next week to discuss Bam's ceiling and how much better he can be for the Heat this season. And maybe we have some news on Damian Lillard. Also next week, David, I really want to try to get to my top 5 observations from Europe. I'm going to just tell everybody what they need to know about Europe in 5, all of Europe, the whole continent.
You saw all. You were there for a week, and that's it. You got everything you need to know about Europe out of that 1 week.
I mean,
basically,
much.
right?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
I went there for my honeymoon. Same thing. I know all I need to know.
So I'm not going to tell you anything you don't know. So
you're just refreshing my memory about it.
Before we head to the Cheesecake Factory, let's jump forward for the biggest questions we'll be asking about these players this time next year. David, let's start with Duncan Robinson. What do you got?
Can we please stop talking about his contract? After a year, another year now at this point, then he'll be expiring or whatever. It's just, can we just please put it past this? And he's delivered this season in 2023-4. I'm again gazing into my crystal ball. Maybe I'm not Bill Simmons, but I see him having a productive season. And as such, can we finally please just put it past this? But he signed a contract. Who cares? Salary cap's going up. Everybody's got nice lucrative deals. Can we just please stop talking about Duncan's contract?
Nope, because that's my question. Does Duncan Robinson have positive trade value? Here's his
contract. My God.
This
they pulled me back in. I feel like the Godfather 3 here. What's going on?
He's making $19.4 million this year. Or I'm sorry, in 2024, 2025, this year, meaning because we're spinning it forward, pretending we're in next year's time. So in the season for 2024-2025, he's making $19.4 million. The year following, he's got an early termination option for 19.8, which is essentially a team option. That's what that amounts to. So, it's
a player option. You mean?
No, early termination option is on Miami.
A team?
Yeah.
Otherwise, he has the choice of opting out. Yeah, I thought he was going to opt. He could opt out. That is, he can choose the early termination. He can opt out if he wants to enter free agency again, which he will not do.
Let's put a pin in that and revisit that. We'll figure that part out. But either way, if Duncan Robinson has a great year, all of a sudden that contract is not as big of a deal as it once was. And depending on what the Heat's roster looks like, perhaps that's something that could even have a positive trade value if he's a 44% three-point shooter again. You know what I mean? So That's my question for him in 2024. What do you have for Josh Richardson?
For Josh Richardson, not a question, a statement. He's this year's Bruce Brown.
Oh, what does that mean? Like in the offseason, he'll be a free agent?
He thrives. Yeah, he thrives in the NBA Finals and helps Miami win a championship. And as a result, he gets his payday next year when everybody's kind of reminded, oh, you know what? He's actually pretty good. He's a productive 3-and-D guy who provides a spark, etc. Let's take a chance and throw some money Josh's way.
You were right about the early termination option. It is basically the player option. So
he won't take it.
A big win for the David heads there. All right. I've got where's my question for Josh Richardson? Oh, who is the next Josh Richardson? So kind of related to yours, but for Miami. Yeah. If he's going to leave with that player option, I wanted to almost go bright side on this, David. And the first thing I had here, but I crossed it out. The Heat are so lucky that he picked up his player option for just $3 million. I don't know. He loves Miami. Perhaps if he has a good year, he would do it. But if he has a good year, it's time to cash in, man. He'll be 31 years old, and it's like, all right, go get that payday.
Last chance.
I think he's going to have a good year. I also think he's going to help the Miami Heat win a lot of games and a lot of playoff games this season too. And those guys tend to get paid. So who's the next Josh Richardson for the Miami Heat? That's what I'm asking. Who's the guy that will come in and sacrifice a little bit of money to be part of something special for a year? That's my question in regards to Josh Richardson. But let's head to the Cheesecake Factory. David, as you know, the Cheesecake Factory menu is chock full of an assortment and an array, a myriad, maybe even you could say, of items for breakfast, lunch, brunch, dinner, drink menus, desserts, all sorts of things. So we've been going through and trying to figure out which one of these plethora of items most represents each Heat player that we're talking about during our training camp player preview series. Let's go with Duncan Robinson first.
Yeah, that was a tricky one for me. The way I see it is he's kind of a plate or an order that you can kind of make or break a game. It's also not anything too spicy or too wild. You know pretty much what you're going to get out of Duncan. You know, there's the occasional pop, which makes it stand out. And that's why I think he's a nice, fine, maybe even just a little dry Caesar salad.
Oh. With
do you have like a yes, but there's the way they describe their Caesar salad is like not particularly enticing. It's just basically a couple croutons and, you know, some nice Caesar dressing, a little Parmesan on there. There's no spice to it. It's nothing. It's not even like a grilled chicken Caesar salad. There's nothing about it. It's a Caesar salad.
Well,
and they have it as a side dish and also as an entree, which is, I guess. Well, I don't know.
I had Kevin Love as the appetizer Caesar salad, like that side Caesar salad, because he used to be an entree salad and now he's a side salad. But Duncan Robinson, I had a hard time with this as well. I had to scour this menu. Scour it. I ended up finding the weekend brunch menu.
Yeah.
I have Duncan Robinson as cinnamon roll pancakes.
Whoa, that's
very different. Yeah.
It's also weird that you'd get pancakes at the Cheesecake Factory, but yeah, let me hear the rationale here.
You think it's a great idea when you see it on the menu. It starts off great. Those first couple of bites, you're like, wow, how come I'm not always eating cinnamon roll pancakes? Why is this not the only thing in my diet? You think it's a great idea to spend a lot of money on them even. And then you slow down a little bit, about 4 or 5 bites through, start to get a little full. You go into a little slump. You may even go into a coma, but eventually you do come back out of it and you finish those pancakes. You just got to sit there long enough at the table to get what it is that you wanted to get done when you ordered the cinnamon roll pancakes. That's what I think Duncan Robinson is.
It's not like an eating challenge. You don't have to eat the whole pancakes. I mean,
when you're ordering pancakes, you are issuing a challenge.
Huh. Okay. Well, there you go.
Is that not true?
Yeah.
If you order pancakes at the table, people are going to look at you and say, "Can you finish all of that?" It's sort of like an unspoken challenge.
Sorry, I've never had the problem of anybody doubting whether I can finish the pancakes in front of me. If I'm getting the pancakes, they're goddamn well being eaten. You know that. I mean, that's why I ordered them.
I got a hot take on pancakes, and I know I'm wrong. You
don't like them.
I actually don't mind pancakes. I don't like them with syrup. I despise syrup.
Oh, you're a weird one.
When I eat my pancakes, I eat them with just butter. I'll eat them with butter, maybe like a jam, depending on the flavor of the pancakes. If it's like a banana pancake or something, but I'll just smear a little bit of butter on there, and I'm good to go. I won't touch the syrup. The syrup makes me want to puke. I can't stand syrup.
Wow, I'm trash.
I know I'm wrong. I know I'm wrong.
No, you're not wrong. I mean, some people like it. I've seen people. My son, like he's at 4. He's just like a little dip of pancake and syrup in the pancake. I'm like, no way.
Your son and I can share a short stack, and that's what we'll do.
Yeah. They're dry. They want a little extra pop of the gloopy syrupy goodness. I mean, I'm trash. I like syrup. I don't know. Sorry. Yeah, I'll admit it. I don't care. It's all right. You know what? A little history. I was digging into the history of the Caesar salad. Apparently, it was invented by restaurateur Caesar Cardini. You know, Caesar Cardini, he was the one, and he came up with the Caesar salad because he had nothing left in the kitchen. He kind of just threw everything he had together in order to make this salad. So it's kind of like Duncan, you know, like you don't know where to go to, but you might as well go to Duncan Robinson. So go with the Caesar salad.
Does that include the dressing? Because I feel like Caesar salad is named after the dressing. So he just took like mayonnaise, and I think like there's lemon in there.
No, the dressing is named after Caesar. He's the one who came up with the dressing. The idea of the Caesar dressing is based off the Caesar salad. The Caesar dressing, and I don't like the bottled version you get at a supermarket probably doesn't have this. It's like mixed with fresh egg, olive oil, anchovies. Yeah. Like if you go to maybe finer scale restaurants, they will mix it for you at the table. And that's how it was originally done. They just took a bed of chopped lettuce and they would mix this fancy salad. It's like,
they don't do it that way at the Cheesecake Factory.
No. I don't think they do.
Surprising.
I don't think they mix it at your table. They do. I've never ordered a Caesar salad at a Cheesecake.
I don't think anybody has. What's Josh Richardson?
Oh man, I was struggling with Josh because I couldn't quite figure out anything.
Oh really?
I knew he's not an entree to me. He's not a star level, that guy. But I have him as sweet potato fries because they can kind of make or break your meal. Like if you're gonna get a side dish, right? Good French fries can make or break your meal. If you get a good sandwich but the fries suck, you kind of feel disappointed. But I went with sweet potato fries because it's kind of like the reinvented version of the French fry, which was his first stint with Miami. And now you're trying something different. Let's recast Josh. He's not a French fry. He's he's a sweet potato fry. So that's kind of how I see him.
Interesting, because I have it the reverse. I have him as French fries. I have him as French fries. I just look, plug and play side item, goes with basically 90% of the menu. Just throw him out there, and he just goes, man. You got a club
Pancakes
sandwich, he
fries.
goes. He's got steak, he goes. Pancakes and fries, it's a classic.
Caesar salad and French fries. It's 50 states across the nation. You get that.
I have sweet potato fries as somebody else when we get to our
always tease this. You always tease this like you came up with this whole like you've got this elaborate chart somewhere in your office.
I'm literally looking at it.
A PowerPoint projected version of the menu here. I kind of just like throw darts on my computer screen and wherever it hits. Like, yeah, that sounds good.
I actually think that they were trying to make him sweet potato fries in the first stint. And now they're just going to settle in and just be like, you know what? You're not sweet potato fries. You're just French fries. There's nothing wrong with being French fries. There's nothing wrong with that.
Do you see sweet potato fries as like an upscale version of regular fries?
I think I do not. I think French fries
That's
are
how they're
superior.
perceived, though.
But I do think that I think they're sold to us from Big Food as a superior, more delicate.
Damn you, Big Food.
It's like the truffle fry. What's a truffle fry? You just put a little truffle oil on it. It's not different than the regular French fry. But if you call it truffle fries, because you know what regular French fries has? Oil. Yeah. You know what truffle French fries has on it? Oil. Like it's the same
it's
product
oil made from truffles, so
but you could throw truffle on it, and then you can add $7 to the bill.
You could label a truffle flavored diaper and people would eat it, you know. I mean, it's just whatever. It's like, oh, it's got truffles in it, you know. And clearly, it's what all the elites are eating, so I might as well go in there too. So I don't know.
Big takeaways from this show is that syrup is overrated and truffles are fake.
I agree with half of that statement.
All right. Well, that was fun. Thanks for making Locked On Heat your first listen every day. We'll be back next week to discuss Bam Adebayo's ceiling and how much better he could be for the Heat this season. Everydayers, make sure that you subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcast app. Also next week, my top 5 Europe observations. We'll get to it at some point in between talking about the Cheesecake Factory menu and whatever other non-Damian Lillard updates come through the news wire. David, have a great weekend.
Yeah, I'm going to go have some cardboard with truffle oil now.
It's going to cost like $18.